Welcome, true crime lovers. This is Underage and Full of Rage. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Underage and Full of Rage, the podcast where the convicted are minors and their crimes are anything but. I am your host, Becky, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Adam.
Hello.
Today we will be discussing the brutal attack and murder of Brittney Bergeron and Kissy Cowan. Alright, this one is definitely a mindfuck and awful, so buckle up, buttercups. Alright, you ready for it?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. In the early morning hours of January 22nd, 2003, a 16-year-old girl along with her 19-year-old brother hatch a plan to seek revenge on a couple who gypped the siblings out of $125 worth of meth by selling them salt instead. Meanwhile, in a rundown trailer located at the Casablanca RV Park and Casino in Mesquite, Nevada, are two very young girls home alone and fast asleep. What are you giggling about already? Get it out now, because this one's dark, so get it out now.
No, it's the name of the trailer park, the Casablanca Trailer Park.
It's an RV park.
RV park, I'm sorry, RV park.
All right, so back to it. Like most nights in their mom's boyfriend's beat-up trailer, Brittney Bergeron, 10, and her 3-year-old half-sister, Kristyanna Kissy Cowan, would often be left alone to fall asleep while watching TV. Brittney's mom, Tamra, and Tamra's boyfriend, Rob, spent most of the time gambling, dealing, as well as doing meth, which meant they often left young Brittney and Kissy to fend for themselves. Up until this point, life was not easy for the 10-year-old, as it was riddled with drug-addicted parents providing little stability while bitterly fighting for custody of young Brittney, causing the two to schlep her back and forth for 4 years until finally reaching a settlement. Once the custody battle was over, Tamra and her boyfriend, Rob, eventually picked up their things and decided to move, taking Brittney and Kissy with them. I am not sure where in the timeline Kristyanna was born, because Rob is not her father and Brittney's dad is clearly not hers either. So as far as who her dad is remains a mystery, and throughout this story is not named. I also think I forgot to mention I'm calling her Kissy because that was the nickname that Brittney gave to her, so I felt it was appropriate. And I was also unable to find any sources basically stating anything other than the fact that she was just Brittney's half-sister. So that's all I know about the little girl, which is sad. The two little girls, however, would end up relocating with their mom and her boyfriend several times before actually settling in at the Casablanca RV Park and Casino in Mesquite. Mesquite is a small town about 75 miles northeast of Las Vegas, and from the looks of it, the RV park basically looks like people just set up their campers in the parking lot of the casino, which I am not sure how normal this is, because I remember my parents doing something similar at Circus. I don't know if it was necessarily in the parking lot, but I remember they brought their...
Oh, there might have been like a campground, a specified like area for...
Yeah, exactly. They did that with Circus. So I think it's pretty common. And I looked it up. I looked at pictures, and it doesn't look like a janky trailer park at all. It almost actually looks like a KOA. You know how KOA does
yeah.
on the concrete?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what it looked like, and... I mean, granted, I'm not sure what it looked like in the early 2000s, but looking at it now, even just like the resort area, because it's like a casino, resort, and RV park, it actually looks like a nice place to go vacation.
It's crazy, because, yeah.
So I was going to say, I don't know if they've had a facelift or what, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when I looked it up, I guess you could say. So, anywho... According to the neighbors at the RV park, Tamra and Rob would leave the little girls alone a lot. There was one source stating that one time Brittney ended up missing 3 weeks of school just so she could take care of her baby sister, which I feel like, that's got to be awful. Although Kissy was her half-sister, Brittney did not treat her as so. In fact, she treated Kissy more like a daughter than a sister. She took care of her in every aspect. She fed her, made sure she had clean clothes to wear. She would put her to bed, and if she hurt herself, Brittney was the one tending to her wounds. Brittney tried to meet Kissy's needs the best she could with the little they had. It's honestly, I think, amazing how fast a kid can jump into that role when they need to.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy that they're able to pick up so quick and just become a parent when they're a child, you know?
Yeah, when they have no other option. Like, because she's 10. She is 10 years old. That is very, very young. So to be able just to have that mentality, it's really impressive. Especially because, like, I don't know, you look at other 10-year-olds, like, especially today, they're useless, you know? But in those moments, like, I don't know if it's just like
The typical 10-year-old is fucking useless.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm like, I don't know if it's just, is it like a primal thing?
That probably just... like a, what? Yeah, probably. I lost where I was going.
I was going to say, good train of thought there. So needless to say, Brittney's early childhood was not ideal, and it was filled with many hardships, but she didn't let that break her. Instead, she remained completely selfless and put her baby sister first and steadily focused on Kissy's needs over her own. Unfortunately, no matter how much she did try to protect Kissy, there would be two individuals that will prove to be too much for the young girls, and what will transpire in the early hours of January 22nd, 2003 would go on to be something that devastated the small gambling town of Mesquite, Nevada. So let's go back to the brother and sister duo standing in the parking lot, angry, frustrated, and at this point probably going through some form of withdrawals as they plot and scheme their revenge on the couple they just confronted for selling them bad meth. And as I mentioned before, according to the siblings, it was simply just table salt. So Monique and Bo Maestas are siblings originally from Utah who happened to be in Mesquite visiting their grandma. Monique, again, is 16 years old, and Bo, her brother, is 19. And these two did not have it easy at all. The siblings were born into complete dysfunction. There are reports of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and neglect, probably since the day they were born. So it is no wonder that Bo was reported to be very angry as a kid, and he started delving into substance use at a young age, and it's no surprise that his younger sister soon followed. One source described their upbringing as extraordinarily troubled, and I can honestly say I don't think I have ever heard that before as a description.
What kind of a description is that?
Right?
Extraordinarily troubled?
And it's one of those...
It could go so many horrible ways.
Yeah, and I don't mean to laugh at it, but it was one of those where it was just like more uncomfortable.
By that.
Yeah, it made me like feel uncomfortable because I was like, what does that mean? Like, your mind goes so many places. So I think that that sums it up very well. Their older sister stated that the two were products of a drug-dealing mother and a twice-convicted killer who spent almost his entire adult life in prison, and more on this in a minute. According to sources, it wasn't just the father being in prison either. Allegedly, the mother contributed to this chaotic childhood, and rather being the warm protector, as you know most moms are, she only fueled their dysfunction. There is an actual story that a neighbor and dear friend of her sister's would sometimes watch the siblings, and her sister stated that he absolutely adored them and was like, super great to the kids. But then their mom got mad at him. I don't know why, but she got mad at him. So to send a message to him, she killed and skinned his cat and then proceeded to nail its head, the cat's head, to this guy's front door.
Who does that?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
I feel like extraordinarily troubled makes more sense now.
That's a good description for something like that. What is that? Wow.
Yeah, that when I was reading this, I was just like next level. That's next level.
Fuck.
So, safe to say, a stable home life was non-existent for the Maestas siblings, and this instability began well before they were even brought into this world. The mom met, apparently, the father while he was in prison, while she was visiting someone else. And I don't even know how this happens. I've visited people before, I guess more so in jail, not technically prison, but you're not even paying attention to anyone else. At least I wasn't. And I also feel like as soon as you're being shuffled in, you have COs telling you it's time to leave. So how you find the time to not only meet another inmate, but to then have a full-on relationship consisting of conjugal visits where 2 children are created blows my mind. Because they were conceived during, like, weekend visits or whatever that they would allow prisoners to have, like, for good behavior.
Well, at bare minimum, you gotta get, like, name and DIN number and all that shit, don't you? Like, how else do you go back and be like, hey, I want to see, like, it's not, hey, I'm here to see Joe, you know?
Yeah, you have to have some type of, like...
You gotta be on like, yeah.
Because you have to be put on the don't you have to be put on the visitors list in prison? Cause, right?
I don't know.
Or is that, like, for only strict... Is there only certain...
There might be certain...
Or maybe it's like a
but
federal...
either way, she had to actually, like...
There had to be a lot more conversing.
Introductions and everything. That's an amazing setting.
Yeah, I when I read that, that's I just don't...
How you met story. That's a how you met story right there.
What do they call them? Meet cutes or whatever?
Something like that.
So Monique and Beau's father was in and out of prison majority of their lives, and if anything, I would say it sounds like he was mostly in and out. He was convicted back in the early 70s for shooting and killing his then girlfriend on New Year's Eve, which I was like, oh, how nice. But what led him to this was a conviction he received back in 1967 for a robbery he committed. After serving a little over 5 years for this conviction, he was released, and then 13 months later, so a little over a year, he was charged with the murder of his girlfriend. His girlfriend at the time turned out to be an eyewitness to the robbery, so obviously as a result, he shot and killed her. For this, he was sentenced to 5 to life and then was convicted while in prison of voluntary manslaughter for the involvement he played in another inmate's death.
Whoa. 5 to life?
I feel like times have changed.
5 to life.
Yeah, and that was back in, what did I say, the 70s?
5 years, 80 years, whatever. It's one and the same. That's crazy.
I feel like they don't do that anymore. But I want to say was definitely more common back in the day, though, right? Like,
I have no idea. I just know that's fucking crazy.
Because now I feel like it's more of like, like 5 to 20 or something, you know, 5 to 15, 15 to 20 instead of 5 to life, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But this definitely isn't the first time I've heard 5 to life, but I feel like it always applies to older cases. So it had to have been way more common back then.
Gotcha.
Especially because I'm like, you murdered somebody and you got 5 years minimum. I don't think that would happen these days.
No, I feel like that's way too little for today.
Especially cold-blooded murder. Because that's clearly what that was. That was a revenge killing.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would happen today. I'd like to think it wouldn't happen. Unless you must have a really good lawyer if it does. So yeah, he was then released in 1987, only to be arrested again 3 months later on drug charges. But he was acquitted of these charges, but somehow ended up also violating his parole and was sent back to prison anyway. And then eventually he was paroled in October of 2002. And I'm assuming this is pretty much the end of his criminal career, because at some point he became infected with spinal meningitis, causing him to become a quadriplegic, which is the weirdest circumstance when you consider how this story ends. So you will see when we get there. So on the night of the attack, we have already established that Monique and Beau are furious about being cheated out of not only their money, but their meth too. So in an act of retaliation, they first go to the Casablanca casino where they find Tamara and Rob, gambling of course, and they end up confronting the two about the bullshit drugs they sold them, and they say that they at least want their money back. And there's actual footage of this taken by the security cameras, and you can see 4 people in what looks like a heated conversation, and then security comes over, talks to them for a bit, and 2 people go back to the casino, and the other 2 leave. The 2 who left were Monique and Beau. After the altercation broke out, the security told them they had to leave due to them being underage. So footage then picks them up in the parking lot, and it is here where they begin to plot their revenge. As they leave the casino parking lot, they make their way to Beau's girlfriend's house. Here is where Monique and Beau obtain a set of knives that belong to the girlfriend's dad. According to her testimony, it was around 1:30 a.m. on January 22nd when Beau knocked on her door. She too lived in the Casablanca RV park, and he asked her for something sharp, like scissors or a knife. Her father had previously studied to be a chef, so giving the knife set to the siblings was something she said she didn't really think about. She just gave the knives to them. She stated she thought the knives were going to be used for drug use. She said Beau appeared anxious and that he told her that him and his sister had been ripped off by someone named Tamara for $200 worth of drugs. So after hearing the story, the girlfriend agreed to go for a ride with them because originally they had made plans to hang out since the siblings were supposed to be returning to Utah tomorrow. Also, I feel like it's important to mention, you can find her name, the girlfriend. I'm personally not going to say it just because this was so long ago. She wasn't convicted of anything. She doesn't need to have her name out there. So going forward, I'm either going to refer to her as girlfriend or GF, basically. Just to keep you on track with that. So, the girlfriend then states that Beau proceeds to drive them to the employee parking lot at the Casablanca casino, where Beau gets out, saying he will be right back. But according to the girlfriend, he never says where he's going, what he's doing, or why. He just says he will be right back and leaves. So while the girlfriend and Monique wait in the car, Beau approaches the trailer of Rob and Tamara. He goes up to the door and knocks. Inside this trailer is 10-year-old Brittney Bergeron and 3-year-old Kissy. Brittney, awakened by the knock, gets up and answers the door. As she remembers it, she says, "There was a guy at the door telling me my mom was injured at the casino and Rob doesn't want to leave her, so he was there to take her to her." Brittney told him she wasn't supposed to go with anyone. She didn't know, and with that, she closed the door on, and she just basically locked it. Bye. Back at the car, Monique and GF are waiting when 10 minutes later, Beau returns to the car saying, "The little girl won't let me in the house." After hearing this, Monique encourages her brother to return and insists on going with him because she thought she could probably get the little girl to let her in. And with that, they both leave, heading back in the direction of the trailer, while GF is just left sitting in the car. Now back at the trailer, Brittney is trying to fall back asleep when again she hears knocking on the door. So she gets up again, and this time when she opens the door, there is a girl standing in front of her. This girl, obviously being Monique, proceeds to tell her the same story and is explaining how they were sent to take her to her mom. This time, for whatever reason, Brittney says, "Okay, but you have to carry my sister because she's sleeping." And with that, she begins to turn away from the door, and in an instant, Beau grabs her from behind, puts a knife to her, and made her sit on the couch. Brittney is unsure of actually what happens next because it is at this point she says she blacked out, which is full-on brain protection. Like, that's one, if you could take one thing away from that, like, at least she doesn't physically remember the attack because it's so brutal. What did occur was that Monique and Beau both started attacking Brittney. They were punching and wrestling with her, and the fight that this little girl puts up is truly amazing because you have to remember she is 10 and she is physically fighting with a 16-year-old girl and a 19-year-old man.
That's crazy.
Like, awful. Terrifying. During the commotion, Kissy ends up waking up, and when she sees what is happening, she's obviously terrified, so she begins screaming. She is 3 years old. Beau grabs her and just starts stabbing. He just starts stabbing the shit out of this tiny little 3-year-old, legit savagely attacks this little baby. And, I mean, an understatement, the scene has now clearly escalated to utter chaos. Brittney, realizing her sister is in danger, is desperately trying to protect her while simultaneously being viciously attacked herself with a knife by Monique because just like her brother, Monique proceeded to start stabbing Brittney repeatedly all over her body. These girls are 10 and 3. When the two were done committing this disgusting act, they both just got up and left. leaving what they thought was these two dead little girls in a pool of their own blood on the floor of their trailer. I have chills right now. I don't even understand what is wrong with people. Every time I've written this, I've gotten, like, this is why this one was hard, because every time I've written this, reread it, editing, I was literally in tears. It's so sad, awful to think about. I'm actually impressed that I was able to make it through without crying, because I even said before we started recording, I was like, I might not be able to make it through this one. So, after they left, Brittney actually came to, and this is when her blackout's over. She's like, this is what she remembers. She remembers sitting on the couch, she blacks out, and then her next memory is this. She is lying on the floor. She remembers that there was two intruders and realizes they are gone. So she tries to move, but she can't feel her legs, and her first thought was that her legs had been cut off. Oh my, terrifying. She then hears noises coming from her baby sister and described it as, it sounded like as if she was drowning, and she could tell Kissy was struggling. So she tried moving towards her, but she couldn't. Brittney just kept trying and trying, but no matter how hard she tried to move, she just could not. And then suddenly she sees lights, and concerned that it might be the two assailants coming back, she decided to stop trying to move, and instead she just laid there on the floor, terrified, bleeding out, and just waiting, because that's all she could do. Luckily, the lights were not Monique and Beau returning, but rather it was Tamara and Rob returning home from the casino. When Tamara noticed the door was wide open, she knew something was wrong and immediately screamed. She then went inside, and as soon as she enters the trailer, she sees her babies laying on the floor, covered in blood and stab wounds all over their bodies. Tiny bodies, I should mention. Brittney remembers at one point seeing her grandmother holding Kissy, and she said she could see that her foot was hanging off, but in the chaos of it all, it was hard, especially at 10, to process and make sense of anything that was going on, and especially because she's losing lots of blood. But what Brittney saw was accurate, because it turned out that Kissy was stabbed so much that during the brutal attack, her foot ended up being severed severely. When the paramedics showed up, they could not believe their eyes. Brittney was bleeding so badly, they had Tamara help apply pressure to some of her wounds, because that's how bad it was. The girls were eventually airlifted, and the entire time Brittney wasn't even concerned about herself. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This girl's amazing. With the exception of telling the responding officer that she didn't want to die, the only thing she was really worrying about was how her sister was doing. Multiple people stated, herself included, that she just kept asking, "How's Kissy? How's Kissy?" Once at the hospital, both girls were rushed immediately into surgery. This is where it was determined that Brittney was stabbed a total of 20 times. 20 fucking times. 2 of which caught her in the spine and severed her spinal cord, paralyzing her from the waist down, which is why she couldn't feel her legs when she came to, and why she couldn't move when trying to get to her sister. Totally crazy. The doctor said in addition to her spinal cord being stabbed, both her stomach and her liver were hit as well. But incredibly, Brittney managed to pull through, and eventually she came out of surgery and started a very long road to recovery. As she laid in her hospital bed with family beside her, she consistently inquired about Kissy. Her family at the time chose to tell her that Kissy was fine and that she was just in another room, but it didn't take Brittney too long to realize this wasn't true, because they never left her side. And if her sister is in another room, why wasn't anyone ever leaving her room to go see her? And ultimately, that's how she realized that, no, my sister's not okay. And she said that it angered her because she was basically left to figure it out on her own, that her sister didn't make it that night, which is so sad. Because they literally did everything together. They were attached at the hip.
Yeah, that's horrible.
3-year-old Kissy did not survive, unfortunately. Her injuries, which consisted of being stabbed in the head, in the mouth and then several times in her jugular vein were way too severe that the doctors just couldn't save her. Her autopsy states her skull and brain were pierced and her jugular vein was completely slashed. She also had a stab wound through her cheek, cutting her tongue. Just no words. There's no words for this. This is so just, it's unthinkable, unimaginable. I don't even know if those are actual words right now. Meanwhile, let's get back to after the attack. Monique and Beau, these two dipshits, flee the scene and they head back to the car where the girlfriend is still waiting. And she says that they returned, I think it was about 15 minutes later. That's how fucking quick this whole thing took. According to her, they come running back to the car, and she said their hands were covered in blood, and Beau said that the police were coming, so they had to get out of there. The three of them then go to Monique and Beau's grandma's house so they can both clean up and figure out what to do next. Beau called a friend who lived around the Salt Lake area and told this friend that they just killed some children and needed a place to go. Which I'm assuming this friend said, come on over, dude, because the three of them get back into the grandma's car, essentially stealing it, and begin driving towards Utah. Like, your friend calls you and tells them that we just killed some kids. Come over? What?
Methods.
It's funny well, it's not funny, but my first thought when I was doing the intro, I was like, it should be called Underage and Full of Meth, not Full of Rage, because you're so right, like, deranged, completely deranged. While en route, Beau disposed of the knives, the bloody clothes, and the towels on the roof of an abandoned gas station in Fillmore, Utah. And I don't know how much longer they were on the road for after ditching the evidence before they were pulled over, but eventually sources stated that just 5 hours after brutally stabbing these two girls, claiming one of their lives and paralyzing the other, Monique and Beau would finally be apprehended in Utah along the highway. The girlfriend testified that while fleeing, the two siblings started revealing more and more about what they did. Monique said she only stabbed the little girl after she bit Beau and apologized for focusing more on stabbing major organs instead of just going for her neck. What? This is a legit quote. I kept trying, but just kept stabbing. I should have stabbed the girl's neck, but I was too scared then. Yeah. According to the girlfriend, also Monique, she believed Monique was manipulative, vindictive, and it was her impression that Beau was manipulated by Monique to do this. I don't know. I think they were both fucked, but then some other things that come out, you'll see, I'll mention it. I don't think it's completely out of the realm that it may have been more of her idea. So the girlfriend states she was scared for her life, and I mean, it makes sense, and she believed that she was now an eyewitness to their crime, which, yeah, and she suspected that she, in like the eyes of them, needed to be dealt with, I guess, quote unquote, because she overheard at one point Monique turn to Beau and say, what are we going to do with GF? Which, I mean, considering the circumstances, I'd probably take that as a threat as well.
Yeah, how do you not? It's pretty in your face, like.
Which, again, a statement like that kind of makes you go back to the
Was it her?
Yeah, the manipulative, the vindictive, like, manipulating him. Like, even though she's 16, he's 19, you could... Like, that's a bold statement from a 16-year-old. Like, we just killed these two kids. I'm apologizing to you for not doing a better job at stabbing this little girl. And now, what are we going to do with this girl in the back seat? Right? It is.
Yeah.
That's a very frightening thought process right there for a 16-year-old. So the girlfriend claimed that Beau didn't respond to Monique at this time, but she felt that due to Beau pulling over and being arrested without incident was his way of showing her he wanted to protect her. She could not be more wrong. Oh my God. So in a letter read by the DA in court to challenge these claims, because this is all from her testimony. So To challenge these claims, Beau, he brings up the fact that Beau wrote to Monique in one of his many letters. This is just a quick segment of it. It says, promise me you will punch GF's teeth out, kick her lips out, rip her tongue out, ... So I can only imagine what else was in that letter. So I think it's safe to say that I don't think he was really ever concerned about protecting her.
Doesn't really sound like it.
Yeah. I think he was actually only ever concerned about himself and Monique in some ways, because shockingly, he immediately admitted to everything. They said he, right away, like at the drop of a dime, just started confessing. And it's basically because the original plan was for him to try and take full responsibility, claiming that it was all him and Monique had nothing to do with it. So ultimately protecting her. But unfortunately for them, this did not work because it was quickly revealed that Monique played a very significant role in the attack. And Beau claimed to officers that Monique and him, finally, when it came out, like, they're like, no, we know she's obviously a part of this. He then said that they went to the trailer that night looking for Rob so they could even the score. But when they got there, he wasn't home and things just got out of hand. He said him and Monique were stabbing wildly and that he couldn't even remember which one he stabbed, which I find very infuriating. That's how little those girls meant to you. Like, that's how little those lives meant to you. You don't even care that you took their lives because you can't even remember the life you took.
Meth heads.
True. Doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't, but meth heads.
That's their logic, I guess. So, I mean, obvious. There was no remorse for Beau. It was brought to light that in another letter he wrote to Monique, he referred to the attack as him, and this is, quote, stabbing those little piggies, end quote. How disgusting. You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, that's a garbage person.
Garbage human. So I also don't know how much I believe this, because if you knew that Rob was at the casino, and even if you thought maybe by the time, because you guys left them there at the casino. So even if you thought maybe by the time you went and got those knives and went by his place, maybe they would have come home by then. All right, fine. But when you knew he wasn't there, you didn't leave. Instead, you came prepared with a ruse to get their kids.
To get their kids, yeah.
To let you in the trailer. So what are you talking about? That you went there to even the...
Were you going to ambush him? And then you're like, fuck it.
Which still doesn't make sense, because...
No, that doesn't. Yeah, I don't know.
If he wasn't there, if it was only to go to see him, and he's not there, why when the little girl wouldn't let you in, you didn't go back? I mean, why'd you go back? Or when you found out that he wasn't home, okay, peace. He's not there. Like, him being home was never part of the plan in my mind.
I gotcha.
I just don't see it. I don't believe that. And then another reason why I also don't believe they went there looking for Rob was because this is interesting. Monique's response to why they did this was, we went after the kids. Oh, this is a quote. Quote, we went after the kids because that's what we were taught. To get back at someone, you hit them where it hurts. They're kids. End quote. So after hearing this, I feel like it's not completely out of the realm that maybe this was her idea.
Who the fuck taught you that?
Do you not remember the parents?
Like, but you see, like, not literally, like, think about that.
Yeah.
You teach somebody to go after somebody's fucking children.
It's terrible human beings right there. It's, this one's so dark that it's hard to even come up with anything to say. I'm just more and more speechless as it goes, you know? So, of course, these two are charged with the stabbings that not just killed 3-year-old Kissy, but also paralyzed 10-year-old Brittney. In addition to being charged with murder and attempted murder, they also received charges for burglary with a weapon, attempted murder with a weapon, and conspiracy. I don't fully understand the burglary charge. I didn't come across any indication this was ever meant to be a burglary, nor did I see anything about them actually stealing anything after the fact.
What do they define burglary as?
Maybe it's like...
it could be some, like,
you
entered a house... That's all that matters. You know what I mean? It could be something like that.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because when she was going to let her in and then he abruptly went in, maybe that's what they were counting. Okay, like, because they had a ruse to get into under false pretenses.
That
maybe that.
Like, you know what I mean? That could be like a stipulation of the charge.
Okay.
Or like a section of the charge or whatever.
That they can just get them on, like, just tack it on type deal. Get them as much as we can.
We could hold you on this, and then,
Gotcha. Okay, yes, even in my mind, burglary, I'm like, you burglarized, you took something, theft. That's what I was thinking, but that makes sense. The
burglary could literally be, like, entering property without whatever.
Oh, I was not aware of that. Okay. Wouldn't that be trespassing? Right? Or does that count?
I mean, trespassing, you could just be on somebody's lawn and be trespassing. I feel like you wouldn't be charged with burglary just because you're standing on somebody's lawn. But if you opened up their front door and walked in...
Oh, I see.
You see what I mean?
That escalates it. Okay. Now I think I get what you're saying. All right. So, Bo pleaded guilty. However, in his first trial, the jury couldn't agree on death or life. So the judge declared it a mistrial, and then another jury had to be convened. And this time, there was no issue amongst the jurors, and it was very, very simple. Bo received death plus 75 years. Monique, on the other hand, was originally going to plead not guilty, but after her brother was sentenced, she ended up changing her plea to guilty right before her trial was expected to begin. I'm assuming it's because she knew that she was going to get fucking life with no parole. Yeah. So, since she was 16, the death penalty obviously was off the table. So instead, which I'm assuming was probably some form of plea, she instead received 47 years to life. And she'll actually be eligible for parole when she is 63. In court, she read an apology letter where she stated she was sorry for the lives lost and changed. She continued on with, quote, "I feel in my heart your future will be better in spite of your disability," end quote. And you'll actually see she's not wrong, which is weird. It's crazy. The judge said that this case has to be one of the most horrendous I have ever been involved with. It's a tragedy all the way around, brought on by this scourge in our community, narcotics. So it doesn't end there, though. Once these two were put away, attention quickly switched over to Tamara and Rob for being neglectful of the girls, and although Tamara and Rob have always maintained there was never any drug deal and that it was just a robbery gone bad, a judge sentenced both of them regardless for leaving the two girls alone, giving Tamara 4 years and Rob 2. Side note on this, if it wasn't a bad drug deal, then why the altercation in the casino?
Yeah.
I just have to say.
Meth heads.
This should be the name of the episode, Meth Heads. So, of course, Bo puts in for an appeal, claiming that receiving a death sentence was too excessive, and accused the foreperson for the jury of lying during their questioning and hid the fact that she was a 911 dispatcher, and because of this, she was biased towards him. He also claimed that the judge didn't set a term of life in prison with the second jury after the first one deadlocked, and therefore should be given an appeal due to the judge's error. The court's response to this was a hard no. The courts rejected all of his claims and said the crime and the defendant are one of a class that warrant the imposition defendant are of a class that warrant the imposition of the death penalty, and it is difficult to imagine a more horrendous killing than Kristyanna's. He viciously stabbed to death a defenseless 3-year-old child. The courts came to a unanimous decision that the death penalty was not imposed under the influence of prejudice, passion, or any arbitrary factor. I think this is the court's way of saying fuck off.
It's kind of what it sounds like.
Like, how dare you? Too excessive. Oh, too excessive. Right? Like, fuck off.
Like, I get it. Like, you get, all the stuff and everything with appeals and all that shit, but it's like, come on.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, I get you get the opportunity to do this, but then when it's so blatant that you're a piece of shit and then you're gonna sit there and act like you're not.
I'm a victim.
Yeah, like, fuck off. So, as for Brittney, the road ahead of her was not easy. She endured hundreds of hours of physical therapy and counseling while adjusting to her new life in a wheelchair, and she put everything she had into her recovery, the whole time missing her sister. Luckily, though, she didn't have to do it alone, and even more luckily, she would never have to step foot in that trailer ever again. This is, honestly, like, this story's so terrible, but thank God it ends pretty much on a better note. After the attack, Brittney went to live with an award-winning foster care parent, foster care parents, Judy and Bill Himmel. At the time, they had fostered more than 30 children with special needs, including infants. And at first, they said it was hard for Brittney. She didn't like to sleep with the lights off and was terribly frightened of the dark, which Brittney said that at this point, she was still extremely fearful that it could happen again. But eventually, Brittney did begin to realize that she could trust Judy and Bill, and that where she was with them, she was fully safe. And with these feelings of being safe came with confidence. And as she began to grow stronger and become more confident, she at one point came across a sporting event for disabled children and asked Judy to take her, which she said this event changed her life and it changed her whole basic outlook and on life and her future. It gave her this new outlook where she said that it opened her eyes and, quote, "It made me think, wow, I can actually do things. I'm not just in a chair. It's not like I can't do anything. I can still do everything anybody else does." She went on to become an accomplished athlete and at one point had high hopes about making it to the 2012 Paralympic. Oh my God, why can't I say that? Say it for me.
Paralympics.
Thank you. In London. It wasn't coming off my tongue right, sorry. So her athletic accomplishments weren't just in one sport either. She pretty much did it all. She competed in track and field, tennis, basketball, skiing, swimming, and she even received a scuba diving certification. That's like crazy.
That's extremely impressive.
Yeah. Like this girl, I just feel like her spirit just could not get broken. Because even like I was saying, like when she was younger and the kind of given like a shit end of the deal, she was so selfless, taking care of her. Like she didn't use it as an excuse. She didn't, she didn't let anything break her spirit. And she was like, she was just so focused on what she had to do. And it's the same thing with this. Like she didn't let this break her spirit. She was just like, no, I still have a life to live and I'm going to live it. God damn it.
Crazy.
So Bill Himmel said, this damaged, frightened child that we were given to take care of now is this independent, outgoing, spirited young lady. Not only do we struggle to keep up with her, I actually think we're riding in her coattails, which is so sweet. If you see, I want to say it was on the 2020 that they were interviewed on. It is just so heartwarming to know that, because you hear such nightmare stories about foster parents and kids, and it was just so nice to see that, I don't know, like human decency still exists. Is that bad to say?
No, because I understand entirely.
Brittney's future was looking brighter than she could have ever imagined, and now for the last piece of the puzzle to fall into place would be for her to be adopted by the Himmels. As a foster child, she could technically be pulled from her loving new home at any point, which was something nobody wanted. Brittney wanted nothing more than for Judy and Bill to adopt her, and they really wanted to as well. She even told a judge, quote, "If my mom couldn't take care of me before, she can't take care of me now," end quote. However, being adopted would not be that easy. There was issues with Tamara wanting to relinquish her rights, and in the beginning, the court system was heavily focused on reuniting a mother and her child, which in this situation, I think is bullshit. Because I understand, like, you want to give the parent the opportunity, you know, because, like, when it comes to things like...
had the opportunity over and over, like...
It's one of those with, like, the neglect thing. You want to give the parent the opportunity to, like, you know, get back on their feet and get their life back in order and get back with. But I think it's different, though, when the child is actively saying, I don't want to go back. You know, like, if the child wants to be reunited with their parents, that's different. When you have the child who, I think at that point now, she was probably, like, 16, stating, like, I don't want to, or, you know, like, she's definitely teen, like, I don't know how old she is at this point, but she's definitely, well, because she was 10 when it happened, so after a few, you know what I mean, like, it was definitely a few years of going back and forth with this, like, I feel like she's got to be tween or old enough to be like, this is where I want to be, this is where I'm happy, this is where I'm flourishing. So I think that situation, it's like, ugh, like, I feel like it's a special circumstance.
Yeah, she's probably old enough to realize what a positive environment is for her.
Exactly. And I don't, so I do get it. I get both sides of it, I guess. So this fight to get Brittney adopted dragged on for several years, but finally, after what I am sure felt like a freaking eternity, the adoption was finally approved, and Brittney was now a Himmel. She made it very clear, though, that this did not mean she did not love her biological mom, and at the time, she made sure she was speaking with her mom at least once a week. And during the process, however, when Tamara was preventing adoption from happening, Brittney stated that it did make her angry because she couldn't understand why her mom didn't want her to be happy. And again, for a parent, that does have to be a hard pill to swallow. But in the end, you have to do what's right for your child, I feel.
Yeah, it's got to be a mind fuck on both ends, though.
Yeah.
Because here you are as a parent, and your kid's like, I don't want any, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? And then here you are as a kid looking at your parent like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's a mind fuck.
And it's, you know, but the thing that I think that's special about their case is, again, she's like, it doesn't mean I don't love you, Mom. It's just these people have been providing a better life for me. Why not allow me to have a better life? Because as much as you, like, it's not like we can't still have a relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
But, I mean, again, I am far from even having, like, an actual realistic concept of what it's like to be in that situation. So I can only just go off of, like, both sides of it. I can't really speak to it. But, I mean, that's why I'm like, it's got to be a hard pill to swallow. But at the end of the day, like, when your child is like, I'm flourishing, you should, you know, I don't know.
You should want them to flourish.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
unselfishly want them to flourish.
Exactly. You have to kind of take yourself out of the equation, is how I look at it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not in that position, and that would break my heart if my child is like, I don't want to be with you.
I'm good.
Yeah. So, Brittney Bergeron Himmel said that she doesn't miss walking and she likes being in a wheelchair better because she has a better life now, and before her life wasn't so great. What she takes away from her experience is to cherish each day and do everything she can. When asked about her attackers, she states that she is glad they are being punished for killing her sister, whom she misses every day. But she has no anger towards them. And I think I'm going to end with a quote from Brittney. So, she stated, am I angry at them? I'm not. In a way, I'm saying thank you. Because, you know, it happened in a bad way, but it gave me a great life. It gave me a great family, a great home, gave me everything. So.
That's really sad. But, like, really nice.
It's, like, sad and happy all at the same time. And, again, I don't know if you picked up on it, but I find it really, really crazy that she ended up in a wheelchair and their father ended up in a wheelchair.
That's crazy.
Because he got the meningitis.
Yeah. That's fucking nuts.
Which is an odd circumstance. Like, what are the odds of that? That's so crazy. But yeah, so everybody, that was the brutal attack of Brittney Bergeron Himmel and the tragic murder of her little baby sister, Kristyanna Kissy Cowan. And that one is definitely a heavy one. So before you go, I am going to pass it off to Adam, who will hopefully lift us back up. I know I could use some comic relief right now. I'm sure everybody else can. So hopefully it's like an entertaining one. I don't know, though. Adam, what do you have for us this week?
I think it's funny.
Oh, God. I don't know what that means. Sometimes your idea of funny is, I don't know.
Is that Oklahoma?
Okay.
Right?
Oklahoma.
Drive-thrus. Everybody goes through drive-thrus now, right?
Oh, God. Oh, God.
And coffee. Everybody goes through drive-thrus for coffee now. So this dude goes through a drive-thru, gets an Americano, a large Americano. Next week comes back for another one, but this time he's watching a video. So turns out, right? Turns out that he rolled up butt naked.
What?
To get his large Americano, and then the following week he rolled up butt naked watching porno.
Oh!
To get another one of these fucking things. Did it 3 times, I believe. It was at 2 of the 4 locations in this one area.
What coffee shop? Was it like a Dutch Bros? Or it was a Starbucks? Ew.
And he did it to quote, see the pretty girls.
Ew, how old is he?
He's in his 20s, 30s.
What a creep. Well, because I was like, is he like an 85-year-old man who's like, hey, ladies?
No,
or like, what a creep.
He says the fucking ski box.
Oh, it's like you remember the Swiss cheese bandit or whatever? The cheese bandit? That guy? That's what that reminds me of. What a fucking creep. So he's pulling up for coffee, butt ass, naked, watching porn?
The second time he was watching porn. The first time he was just butt naked.
Oh my God. Oh. What if you spilled that hot coffee on you? That is, ooh, dare I say, ballsy.
He ended up getting charged with indecent exposure.
I'd say.
And was released on like $4,000 bond.
Oh my God. What a sick... But see, that shit like that, I don't know. That usually leads to like other shit. Like that's gotta be like some peeping Tom stuff.
Think about this. He had to get to his car. Was he naked? I didn't find any information. Was he naked getting into his car, or did he get into his car, then strip down, get naked, then go to the... You know what I mean?
I'm gonna go with that he's got one of those, like, attachments where you go through your house into your...
Oh, to the garage.
Like in Florida, where you're, like, directly into the garage. I'm gonna go with that he went in naked and then drove the whole way there naked. I'm gonna go with that.
Makes you wonder how many shirtless people you see driving around are actually pantsless.
Oh, that is so gross. What a fucking... You're a creep. You're a creep. Yeah, the only thing I can think of is the cheese bandit. Or like the guy that stopped us when we were little. Me and... I want to say Courtney was with me. Yeah, and he asked us for directions and he was pantsless. I don't remember who I was with. We were little though. I feel like I was only like 8. Ugh. What a freaking creep. Ooh. Alrighty then. So on that note, thank you for listening. And until next week, make your dash count and don't be a douche.
Have a good one.
See ya.